Welcome to a brand new episode of Johnson's Court. We are back here with you with another car episode, but this time we're talking about football because we love football, and it's right around the corner. The preseason will be starting here soon. Mini camps are underway. They're happening, and so we're super excited to talk about football because it's one of the best times of the year. So just to get into it, I still have Nick here with me, Mr. Dan, and Dylan. We got the double D's back there. That was kind of a funny joke. Didn't realize until I said it. Yeah, we're having fun. We've been in the car all day, so we're going rowdy back here. But to just kind of start us off, I like to do this every year, is go through and rank the divisions who we think are going to be first, second, third, and fourth in that division. Obviously, I didn't write down enough room here for the NFC, but that's okay. We'll start with the AFC. And particularly, we will start with the AFC North. With that being said, we will start with Dan coming out of the AFC North. Go ahead and give your predictions 1 through 4, and then we'll go to Dylan next.
Okay. All right. AFC North. So I will go off of, I'll go 4-1 just to,
Make it interesting.
My thing, make it interesting. Save the best for last, I do think Cleveland is, even with Deshaun Watson maybe playing a full year, I see them still rocking the boat at the bottom of the AFC North. And then, it's kind of toss-up. Like, I know who my number one is, as probably most people probably have the same one, but I would still go with Pittsburgh as my third. And then Baltimore, I think they can definitely make the playoffs. They can make a run. But number one, Cincinnati. So similar, pretty much same as last year, the standings for the AFC North. I just kind of see it like each team's consistent with their players and player development. Steelers could maybe pop in the wild card spot, but that's my AFC North.
All right, Dylan, that was a good prediction there, same as last year. So we'll see if Dylan mixes it up here.
So I see the Browns and Steelers kind of being pretty toe-and-toe for the bottom two spots, but I think the Steelers' defense is better than the Browns' offense, so I'm going to have to go with the Browns at 4 and the Steelers at 3. With the Ravens, I can really see them being as good as winning the division, but I could also see them having an off year and potentially being the worst team in the division. But I'm going to trust that Lamar Jackson does what he does, and I'm going to give the Ravens a 2 spot, and I have the Bengals going at least to the AFC Championship again this year, as of right now, if they stay healthy. So I got the Bengals winning the AFC North.
All right. That would be the same as Dan there. So pretty, maybe there's a pattern going here. We will go to Nick. What are your predictions for the AFC North here?
Yeah, so a lot of people are making big huff about how competitive the AFC East is going to be this year. I think the AFC North is just going to be as competitive and very much bottleneck too. I think there's a clear top team, and we'll get to that when I get to number 1. But I think 2 through 4 is just going to be very tightly packed with all those teams. Having said that, I think coming in at number 4 is going to be Pittsburgh. In comparison, they had a really good year last year. I think Kenny Pickett took that step as a rookie QB. I think he'll get better this year. But reasons why they're 4 and not 3 is I just think another full year Deshaun Watson in the training camp, in the preseason mode. I think, their defense is as stacked as any defense out there. Nick Chubb is one of the top running backs in the league this year. They always have a top offensive line. So I have Cleveland at number 3. Ravens will come in at number 2. Lamar Jackson got that contract. He's got the bag. They're always competitive, always tough. But I think they're securely in there number 2. I don't think they did enough wide receiver-wise. Yes, they brought in Odell Beckham Jr. They drafted Zay Flowers in the first round. They got Lamar Jackson somehow. Mark Andrews is one of the top tight ends in the league as well. But there's a clear cut, and that's Cincinnati. I think Joe Shiesty is one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and that's really what it comes down to, is who has the top quarterback in the division, and it's Cincinnati.
Absolutely. You know, can't go wrong with the Bengals. You know, this division will definitely be competitive. You know, they always seem to find a way to, you know, this division has one of the best rivalries going on. So if I had to pick, I would say the Browns at number 4. Deshaun just has to show me more on the field than he does off the field. Number 3, I would go with the Steelers. I'm not the biggest Steelers fan, but they had one. It doesn't, unfortunately. Only if I would turn the camera around. All good. I'll finish writing it down. Got the Steelers there. They have a great defense. You know, Mike Tomlin, you know, he's a pretty good coach. You know, did they have a losing season record last year?
No, so they were 8-8 last year.
No, they were
Okay.
9-8.
Oh, 9-8, okay.
So
Yeah.
he was on the verge of losing that streak, but, you know, still there, you know, quarterback issue. But, you know, it's getting better there. Mr. Trubisky isn't a bad quarterback either. So we'll just see what happens with the Steelers. That's why I got him at 3. Man, number 1 and number 2, it's definitely a hard-fought battle with, you know, Lamar's coming back from injury. He just went and got the bag. He's his own agent. He deserves to get paid that money. He's the second coming of Michael Vick. But I believe that's why I'm going to put them number 2, just because he is coming back from injury. And then number 1, I got to put Joe Shiesty, you know. I'll say it however I want, you know. There we go. Those white, clean jerseys for the Bengals are looking hard. You know, I'm a big Joe Burrow fan. I like him at LSU. Jamar Chase is, you know, really good. You know, the Bengals have what it takes. You know, they've really improved, you know, from being the most sacked quarterback of the season to, you know,
A little less.
Yeah.
not a big lead,
Yeah.
but
little less.
little less.
So I'm going Bengals here, but I think it will definitely, you know, it'll be a fight between the Ravens and the Bengals. So with that being said, we really all have the Bengals at number 1. And number 2, we really all have the Ravens. So it'll probably be between those two. We will go on, and then we will talk about the AFC West. We will start with Dylan here.
AFC West.
Oh boy. Okay, so no surprise here. We have Mahomes and Kelsey taking the top spot again in the AFC West.
You start with number 1. He ain't even worried about number 4.
Yeah, well,
He knows what's going on.
the rest, you can kind of make a case for every team, but I think it's clear cut that the second best team in the AFC West is Justin Herbert and the Chargers. And I think you can flip whatever team, Broncos or Raiders, 3 or 4. But I think what's his name? Russell Wilson will have a bounce back year. Not anything crazy by any means, but I think the Broncos will finish 3rd, and the Raiders will finish maybe tied or a game below the Broncos.
Yeah, no, that is definitely a good prediction there. I'll start 4th with, I believe, the Raiders will be number 4. Maybe Jimmy G will play pretty good, but I've just never been a Raiders fan. I've just never seen him really play good or do good. That management just kind of sucks. Put him at number 4. Yeah, I think I have to agree with you. Russell Wilson has a bounce back year, but not too much. Barkman's Country, let's ride to the 3rd seed. And then it really is going to be between the Chargers and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are just too good, so I'm going to have to agree with you. Chiefs at number 1 and the Chargers at number 2. All right, Dan, you got anything different to say about that division?
For the most part, I agree with both Dylan and Riley. I will. From last year, I will flip. Have Las Vegas be the 4 seed. You know, Jimmy G. We'll see. You know, if he can stay healthy and whatnot. And he's coming off an injury as well. So I mean, I'll put them as 4. Denver, I think, Russell Wilson will get at least a couple more wins. They had 5 last year, so I can see them getting at least 7 or 8, you know, getting that 3 seed in the AFC West. And then just for shits and giggles, I will flip the Kansas City and the Chargers. Yes, Kansas City is top. And Super Bowl, the Super Bowl champions. They're, you know, like one of the best teams in the league. But, you know, maybe it'll be a surprise. They'll still make the playoffs no matter what. But I'll just say the Chargers. I'll just, you know, have them go with the 1 seed. You know, edging out Kansas City, you know, by maybe a win or 2.
Absolutely. Hey, I love it. You know, we can't all be the same here. That's why there's 4 of us on this podcast. You know, got to make it spicy and interesting. What about you, Nick?
You know, I love that, you know, we all can't be the same here and we're diverse. But Dan, you need to take that answer. Just throw that out. It's the Chiefs, the Chiefs, the Chiefs, the Chiefs. I mean, for all intents and purposes, the Chiefs are everyone's daddy in that division here. Okay, so the Chiefs are going to be number one. I mean, there's no
Happy dad.
The Chiefs are clear and cut number one coming out of that squad. You know, the Chargers are really good, and I know we'll probably get to this topic, this segment, a little bit later. But, I mean, the Chargers probably will squeak into the playoffs. I mean, Justin Herbert is a top 10 quarterback in the league. But they'd be number two. Honestly, you hope for a bounce-back year from Russell Wilson and the Denver squad. You trust in their defense. And that's what I would do if I'm new head coach Sean Payton. I would trust in that Denver defense. Hopefully you can change what happened. Russell Wilson, whether it was mental, whether it was physical, whether it was a combination of both. But for number three, it's going to be Oakland. You know, I think Jimmy Garoppolo, a little bit underrated as a quarterback there. I think that was a really good pickup for them. I know they got to figure out the Josh Jacobs situation long term, and I think they will as an organization. But they still got Devontae Adams, still got Matt Crosby. You got two top people at really two important positions there. So I have the Raiders number three, and then I have Denver coming in at number four.
Let's ride. All right, we're about to get on the interstate, so it's kind of funny. Man, should we talk about AFC East last or the AFC South last? What do you guys think?
East last.
All right, we'll talk about the East last. So we'll move on to the AFC South. And, you know, well, Nick's about to get on the interstate, so we'll save him. I'll go ahead and go first. You know, I'll make this segment about me. I'm just kidding.
It's all about you, right?
It is my court. For number four, I'm going to put the Houston Texans. Yeah, they just got CJ Stroud. You know, great pickup. You know, they're on the right trend and direction. At number three, I'm going to put the Indianapolis Colts. Not saying that they could have a winning record, not saying they'll have a losing record. Maybe they'll go even. I don't know what they're going to do this year. I know Nick's looking at me. That's why I'm going to save him for last year, because he's the most unrealistic Colts fan. But for number two, I'm going to put the Tennessee Titans. I think, you know, getting D-Hop is actually going to help them. I don't know, Ryan Tannehill's that meteor. He kind of reminds me of Phillip Rivers and stuff, you know, being that old kind of man quarterback. I just don't know how well that's going to serve them. I know Derrick Henry, you know, he's a beast, so, you know, they definitely need, you know, get another number one wide receiver. So that's what they're doing. But I got them at number two, and then number one, I'm going to put Jacksonville Jaguars. You could not write a better script for Trevor Lawrence, you know, just you know, really happy to see Jaguars, you know, finally not suck. You know, see something, you know, happy happen for Florida. So good luck to Trevor Lawrence and his long hair and that team. You know, they've really improved, gotten better. I can't name, you know, all the players on their team, but they've gotten better, and I'm excited to see what happens for them. So we will go to Dan here. What do you think about the AFC South?
AFC South, Houston has not proven that they are, you know, improving very much. Besides, yes, the draft, they had two solid picks, you know, the first round, and some other, you know, good picks, but Houston just cannot pull together a winning season as of recently. So, yeah, definitely Houston will stay at the bottom and be the 4th seed. Then I have it switched up a little bit. Tennessee, I think, will take a step back and get the 3 seed. Yes, Derrick Henry, I mean, one of the top running backs. You know, he can still have a good year, but I just don't see Tennessee making a step forward. They had 7 wins last year, but I can see them, you know, getting that same 7 wins. But I think leading into the second will be Jacksonville. I think can retain, you know, a good system. You know, they got their coach Doug Peterson and you know, the quarterback Trevor Lawrence. They can definitely ride it out. I think they can get a wild card, but I do have, just as Indiana living Colts, you know, I think they can, you know, pull it out. If they can, you know, we'll see. So I'll say Jacksonville's 2 and Colts, you know, I'll just put them as the 1 seed in the AFC South.
I was not expecting that from Dan. I thought he was more of a realistic Colts fan, but that just went out the window there.
Wait, you said Colts what?
He said Colts number
He's
one.
off his rocker.
I mean, I don't know what's going on here, guys. Hey, that's why this makes this so much fun. But, hey, that's okay. Because don't worry, we're going to save Nick for last. But, Dylan, what do we have here for the AFC South? Can you be more realistic for me?
Yes, I will try.
I'm just messing with you, Dan.
And,
But, no, hey, the Colts could
different.
prove us completely wrong, and AR could, really take off for their QB situation.
He's passing to Alec Pierce.
So, all right, go ahead, Dylan. Go ahead.
In the bottom spot, as of right now, I have the Houston Texans. I like what they did this year with their draft, bringing on some key pieces in free agency, such as Dalton Schultz. Who was the other offensive guy they got? Anyone that was a running back or receiver?
Couldn't tell you.
I can't remember, but I know that there's some other decently big name guy that they picked up. So they're at least heading in the right direction, but with a young quarterback, I think they're going to sit at the bottom. Next, I've been going back and forth with these two teams, but I got the trash Colts sitting at 3. Really like the pickup of Anthony Richardson as their quarterback. I think they're a couple years out from being pretty solid again. And then at 2, I got the Titans. Typically a pretty solid defense. Doesn't really do anything too sexy on either side of the ball, but they seem to get the job done most of the time when it comes down to those close games. And then I got the Jaguars running away pretty easily with the AFC South.
All right, I'm not gonna lie. I know this guy back here is a Dallas Cowboys fan, so we'll get into them later when we get to the NFC. I am a Colts fan. I mean, I know I'm kind of talking trash about the Colts, but it did hurt a little bit to say like they were a trash organization. They're not bottom feeders. We're not the Texans. I have hope, but all right, your choice of words there were a little different, Cole, but it's okay.
You gotta get the views.
But we know why Dylan's here. Here he is. Break us down the AFC South. Break it down.
I know probably NFL media as a whole and a lot of the writers would just love to poo-poo the AFC South as a whole. And, rightfully so. As a whole, record-wise, division didn't really live up to probably a lot of standards on the onset of coming into the 2022 season. But this is a new season. A lot of things have changed, but coming in number 4 in the division is going to be Houston. I do think you can start to see that franchise is trying to lay the groundwork to try and improve into the future. Selecting CJ Stroud, selecting Will Anderson in the draft. I think those are really good foundational pieces to help grow with who they've already had from last year's draft and the previous as well, to try to continue to take that next step forward. Having said that, I still think there's a lot of work to do, so they're number 4. Number 3, as Dan sort of said, Tennessee's going to take a step back this year. Who still knows what they're going to do in quarterback situation? They still have Ryan Tannehill on the roster. It seems like Malik Willis, who had so much hype coming into last year, is kind of not even on the radar this year. What's the health status of Derrick Henry, who's starting to, miss a lot of times? Is it all the miles and the tread on the tires that's starting to catch up with him? So I think as a whole, they do take a step back, although they did get a huge signing in DeAndre Hopkins. Whether or not that's going to fit or not, it's to be seen, but they did get a name. So coming in at number 2, I have the Colts and at number 2. There's a lot to figure out with the Colts even. Who's going to start at quarterback? Is it going to be Minshew? Is it going to be Richardson? I think that's something that they do have to nail down as soon as the preseason starts, Don't fool around with that. What's the health status of Shaquille Leonard? How is this contract stuff going on with Jonathan Taylor? Is that going to loom over his head and the Colts' head going into the season? As he's starting to become a little bit more vocal himself. What's the offensive line going to be like? Was last year a fluke? Is it going to improve this year? So there are a lot of things that need to be looked at, need improvements, but I think all the things are there. New head coach takes second, new voice in the room, new coaching staff for the most part. We had a really great, solid draft class this year. I think all the pieces are there to be a contender. But the real contender of this division is Jacksonville. I don't think that last year was a fluke for them. They caught fire going in the end of last season into the playoffs. We saw what they did in Wild Card Weekend versus the Chargers. Massive comeback. We saw why the Jaguars selected Trevor Lawrence #1 overall. It's coming into their own. I mean, they have pieces at every single level that you look at across the board on their team. I think they're going to be very competitive this year. I don't think it's going to be a runaway for them in the division. I do think it's going to be a close race, but in the end, I do have Jacksonville winning the division.
All right, so that was really good for the AFC South. I think the only one who was a little bit delusional was Dan, putting the Colts at #1. But hey, he's optimistic.
He's within reason, though. I mean, Dan isn't far off on his points, though. It's the NFL. Any given Sunday, anything can happen. We did see Cleveland win their division 3 years ago.
Just depends on how they write the script. JK, just joking. Moving on to the AFC.
Wait, was it Cleveland or was it Baltimore?
It was Cleveland.
Okay, so yeah, with Baker, right?
Yeah.
Baker.
Wait, no, they lost the last game, didn't
Or I don't. There was something
they?
like that. Yeah.
Maybe they were going if they won the last game. I don't remember.
But
The point is, in 1999, the Colts went from 3-13 to 13-3. So
anything is possible.
we'll see what happens.
Just like Nick said. So we will move on to our last division, which is the AFC East. We will let Dan go first, then Nick, then myself, and then we'll save last for Dylan because he really wants to talk about that division.
So I'm starting it off. AFC East, as we all know, the Jets got Aaron Rodgers. So how are they going to do with their new QB? I think they will step it up a little bit. So they are not going to be the 4th seed. I think the Patriots, they're trying to figure out their quarterback situation. We'll see what they do. Yes, they have one of the best coaches, but I think they'll take a step back. They'll be the 4th seed, moving the Jets up to the 3 seed. Aaron Rodgers, I think, will at least lift them up. They had 7 wins last year, so I can see them with at least 8, 9, or possibly 10 wins with Aaron Rodgers and their, decently strong roster, if they're healthy, obviously. And then leading into the second, which I think can definitely be a battle between Buffalo and Miami. I can kind of see either one going 1 or 2 seed, but I just think Miami is going to be a little bit behind Buffalo. Buffalo is very consistent every year. They only lost 3 times last year, so 2 seed will be Miami. Very good team. They could surprise us. They could, get that 1 seed, but I'll have Buffalo reclaiming their AFC East crowns.
Very good takes. You got the Patriots last. I mean, and that's the thing. Everybody has to finish somewhere, And, with Bill Belichick being one of the best coaches in the NFL, it's crazy to say, oh, man, the Patriots aren't leading their division since they were victorious over that division for so long. So we'll go ahead and break it down to Nick. Do you have the Patriots 4th as well?
That's the thing with lists, as you just hit on it. Some teams got to be last. And no one here is talking records. We're just talking placement of teams. So I think the AFC East is going to be the most competitive division in the AFC. I think every single team in this division is winning at least 6 games. So I think it's going to be very, very close for all 4 teams. For the most part, at the very least 3 teams. But yeah, I do have the Patriots coming in at last in this division. I believe Stonewall Belichick has learned his lesson. Got a coordinator coming into this year. Hopefully that helps their offense. Their defense has always been, at the very least, solid to middle ground, if not better. But having said that, I mean, could you really name a receiver, a tight end on the roster? Exactly. They didn't really do anything to really address the major needs for that team. Nothing in the offseason, nothing really in the draft. And a league that's an offensive passing league, you need those key things. So we'll see if it stunts the growth of Mac Jones or not. It did last year. We'll see if that continues. At number 3, this is where it really gets tough. I have Miami coming in at number 3. I just think the situation with their quarterback, which is the number one concern for Miami, is their quarterback, I would say.
100%.
It is scary. There's still a lot of question marks with that. Other than that, there's really not a lot of deficits. Maybe the running back position there in Miami, but there's really no other glaring weakness on that Dolphins squad. Coming in number 2, as Dan alluded to, biggest headline, one of the biggest headlines in the whole offseason this year, Aaron Rodgers signs with the Jets, or got traded to the Jets, I should say. Forced his way to the Jets to get even deeper.
Very true.
They won 7 out of 9 games to start the season last year with very mediocre play at quarterback. They fell off at the end, but 7 out of 9 games they started the year last year. Aaron Rodgers is only going to help them. So if they're not at the very least, I know we're not talking about playoffs right now at the moment, but they're not at least at a playoff team, it would be very disappointing. Very disappointing season for them. So I have them at number 2. And number 1, be the last one on the board, Buffalo. Last year, they came onto the scene like the pants on fire. That opening night game versus the Rams blew the Rams out their own building. Kind of teetered off at the end of last season. Josh Allen had some injury problems. They lost their star defensive end in Von Miller. I know that really hurt their defense. But I think they're gearing up for another run. They did lose some key pieces in free agency this year. So they could take a little bit off that defense, but they're still one of the best teams in the AFC as a whole. And the Bills are one of the top teams in the AFC. And until further notice, again, I think it's really going to be close from top to bottom for the most part, but I think the Bills take it.
Absolutely. That was an amazing way to describe the AFC East. And we'll see what Dylan has to say about that.
So looking at these 4 teams, it's definitely going to be the most competitive division in the AFC, but starting at 4, I have the New England Patriots. I think by far they are the most competitive team that's going to finish in 4th place this year in the NFL. Kind of like what Nick said, didn't really address some of their bigger issues, and I think that will stunt, like Nick said again, the growth of Mac Jones as not addressing the needs, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Looking at 1 through 3 at the Bills, Dolphins, and Jets, it really can go in any order. I know it's a long season and many things can happen, but I got the Jets finishing 3rd. I think the addition of Aaron Rodgers was a big need at the upgrade of the quarterback position. I expect them, but this division potentially having 3 playoff teams. I think it comes down to the play of the Los Angeles Chargers. I think them and the Jets will be battling for that 7th spot. And then at 2, I'll consider this my hot take. I have the Buffalo Bills.
Ooh.
At 3rd?
No,
At 2.
At 2, I'm sorry, 2.
So
Spicy.
try to keep one hot take per segment. So I'll have the Bills at 2 as mine. Defense is stellar. Really no complaints when watching them last year. I know there's been a lot of back and forth between Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs trying to figure out each of their roles and just kind of gelling as teammates.
Well, I think the roles are pretty much defined, Dylan. One's a quarterback, one's a receiver. So
I meant like
I know
how they're going to go about playing together and making sure each person's getting what they need. So I think in this scenario, if the Dolphins stay healthy for a whole year, hoping Tua can stay healthy. That injury last year was really scary. I think they're an offensive juggernaut with all their Tyreek Hill,
Jalen
Waddle. Got a couple good fast receivers, and defense got even more better this year with the addition of Jalen Ramsey. So I think if a scenario where they stay fully healthy and the Bills can't address some of their smaller issues, I can see room for the Dolphins to take the top seed in the AFC East.
And
the Dolphins may have the best defense in the division.
That is true.
But that division is tough defensively. I mean, New England,
Very tough.
Dolphins, Buffalo, the Jets, all four of those teams could very easily get carried by their own defenses.
All right, we love this division. So, give my take a little bit. Man, I agree. You know, Nick said it. This is going to be the toughest division in the AFC this year, besides the AFC North. But I think AFC East is going to be just a little bit tougher. I think we all will agree that the Patriots are going to be number 4. You know, yes, Bill Belichick, you know, is a great coach, but you know, when you draft a kicker in the first round, sometimes that's not always the answer to your problems. Remember, he did that a few years ago, or maybe it was the second round, but it was just wild that they drafted a kicker. Yeah, I know. I'm making the same face.
That wasn't New England. That was the Raiders. It was.
Are you sure? Was the Raiders?
Sebastian Janikowski. No, that was the punter.
Janikowski was like 20 years ago.
I know, but what I'm saying is I don't think anyone's done the first. Not that I can think of.
I'll have to look it up. Maybe that's just another team I'm confusing that with. But for some reason, that stuck in my head.
Fantasy football.
Or maybe that's just fantasy football. You know, that happens as well. But number 3, man, this is, like I said, it's getting harder as it goes. I want to put the Dolphins. Yes, they got better. Their defense got better. But it's really going to depend on the quarterback. If, you know, the league is so quarterback, you know, playing division, then it's just really going to be very, very hard to not be able to, you know, win, you know, the amount of games they need to make a playoff spot. Number 2, I will go ahead and put the Bills there. Just kind of how Dylan said, you know, if they don't figure their stuff out, they're going to slip, and you can't do that versus a really good division with the other teams in your division, and then with the other teams that are playing really well in the AFC this year. So number 1, my hot take, I'm putting the New York Jets there. I think Aaron Rodgers really is a generational type, you know, quarterback. He's done playing games in Green Bay. He's done playing games with his career. You know, he really decided, do I want to retire this year or do I want to play football?
He's actually playing games with the rest of the NFL.
Very true. So I think that, you know, they're really good on defense. You know, he brought a lot of Green Bay players over to the Jets. You know, I really think that, you know, this is a Super Bowl team or bust this year. I think next year obviously will be the same type of mentality, you know, but hopefully they can get it done this year. So that is my hot take in the AFC.
I just wanted to add something really quick. The reasoning behind why I had the Jets at 3 was not mainly, but a key factor was, like Riley just said, Rodgers demanding all these specific players coming over from the Packers, a lot of them being past their primes and not really addressing new youth. And who was the wide receiver?
Denzel Mims just got traded.
Denzel Mims.
But DJ Moore's from Carolina.
Yeah. Lazard.
No. He's a short.
Cobb.
No.
Cobb came though, right?
No, I know.
Cobb did come.
Are you talking about someone who left the team, or
they come to the Jets with?
Oh, that came. Oh yeah, so it was.
He had like Cobb. A wish list of 4 or 5 players.
It was Randall Cobb.
Yeah.
Allen Lazard was on both of those receivers. Those are the 2 receivers that came over to Green Bay.
Regardless, I don't think that they should have met his request in that aspect. I think they should have gone out, maybe gotten more athletic and more youth in that aspect. And also, I think the Bills' use of Gabe Davis will be a big impact on whether they do teeter-totter between 1, 2, and 3. I think Diggs is going to get a lot of double team coverages this year, so it'll be interesting what they do with that and how they adapt their run game as well this year.
All right, thank you for that, Dylan. Before we, go too much into, because we can deep dive into this all day long. We will stop on AFC. That is it there. And we will go to the NFC. Like I said, we could talk about it all day. I mean, this podcast could be hours long. But
we'll get there. We'll get there. More subscriptions, more viewerships. Yeah. We'll get there.
Man, Nick does great transition, guys. Just so you know, he's going to be in those podcasts a lot more. And Dan and Dylan. All of us. So, yeah, we'll just go straight into we'll start with the NFC South. Dan, why don't you take us away with the NFC South?
All right, so I'm looking at the records from last year as part of the research. NFC South, obviously, as we know, Tampa Bay, they won it last year with an amazing 8-9 record. So with Tom Brady, and I believe he has retired. I don't think he's coming back.
I believe.
We're not fully sure. He may go into broadcasting. He may coach football, high school football, whatever. He may take over the ownership of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or
he's part ownership of the Oakland Raiders.
There you go. Oakland Raiders, maybe. We'll see. But
Oakland Raiders. Oh my gosh, Las Vegas Raiders. That slipped out.
I think they will obviously take a step back. Losing, if not the greatest player of all time for NFL. He made a big deal for them. So Tampa Bay, I will say, will probably drop down at least a couple spots. So I will go ahead and put them in the 3 seed in the AFC South. So leaving the 4 seed is open. It's each of the Carolina, New Orleans Saints, and Atlanta. They all got 7 wins last year, so they all basically tied in a way. So not trying to be indecisive, but I will keep it. I'll drop Carolina down to the 4 seed, even with their pick in the draft this year. So then Tampa Bay, as I said, was 3 seed. Nope, sorry, I'm going to change it. Keep it. Carolina's a 2 seed, so I'm going to keep Atlanta as a 3 seed. Nope, sorry, Tampa Bay 3 seed. And then I'll have the Saints go number 1. Hopefully the math works out if I place them and I can stop being...
I'm just as confused as everybody else watching this video is. Who do you have 1 through 4? Just run them.
So I will go with...
The man speak.
Atlanta number 4, Tampa Bay number 3. I'll go Saints number 2, Carolina number 1. Again, this is so hard to pick because they all pretty much had the same record last year. Yes, they had all improvements, but you can flip a coin and get the winner of the division.
And you know what, Dan? I'm here to defend you here. I mean, I spoke early in the podcast about how a lot of people want to poo-poo the AFC South. Well, you can poo-poo the NFC South. I mean, this division is so wide open. They are literally screaming, saying, "Hey, here, take it." It's to me, I would put money on one of the worst division record-wise, probably NFL this year as a whole. But someone's got to come out on top.
So who do you got then, Nick?
Yeah, so
who's 4, who's 3, who's 2, who's 1?
I'll get right to it. So I have at number 4 the Atlanta Falcons. I have at 3 the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Number 2, the Saints. Number 1, Carolina. I think CJ Stroud. Oh my gosh. Bryce Young, thank you so much. Number 1 pick, Bryce Young, I think has a really great rookie year there. Carolina was already a good team last year, and they went to 7-9, something like that, around that record. And they got better in the offseason this year, so I think they come out with the division crown.
Awesome. Yeah, like you said, it's up for grabs. What about you, Dylan?
I have the same exact order as Nick. I got the Falcons in last place. I know there's going to be a situation at the quarterback this year between Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota. Who's going to start? Who's going to get X amount of games? And so forth. But in my eyes, besides their age, I really see them being 2 similar players in most aspects of the game. So I think they'll just continue to struggle no matter who they have in at quarterback. 3, I have the Buccaneers. I really see them dropping off this year without Brady, and a bunch of those stars that they had on that Super Bowl team either already gone or getting up there in age. The Saints, I really wanted to put first, but I just don't see it. I mean, for the love of God, you got your best star wide receiver who has taken longer to return to the game than Brian Robinson, who literally got shot. So, I mean, if that's...
That's very accurate.
Dark.
It is accurate.
Not to get dark, but what do you have, like a sprain toe?
Michael Thomas played in, 3 games last year or something like that?
Like a sprained toe, and this other guy got shot and returned.
There might have been some contract disputing going on there, but I agree with you totally, Dylan.
Too many
Viewer discretion advised.
Too many issues that
So
they gotta address.
I'll put that in the video.
And if I'm
Start
not
out.
mistaken, I think the Panthers had a top 8 defense last year. Nick, you're the football guy. That sounds about true?
Yes.
Right? Yep. So I also think Bryce Young, the addition of, they got Adam Thielen, right?
Yes. That's an underrated pickup.
They
I
did
believe.
lose DJ Moore, but I don't think that will hurt them too much in a division of who's the worst of the best. But yes, I think
Who's the best of the worst?
the best of the worst.
Somewhere
Who's
wrong.
the best?
Words are hard.
Who's the best of the worst? But yes, I have the Panthers finishing on top.
Coin flip for every single one of these. Should I do a coin flip? No, that'd take too long. So ready, here we go. Falcons number 4, Bucks number 3. I'm writing these down. You know what? Let's put the Panthers at number 2, and let's put the Saints at number 1. I'm a Jameis Winston fan. He got eye surgery. Hopefully he can see now. I don't really know.
Is he the starting quarterback of the Saints?
Wait, no, Derek Carr is. Shoot.
Oh shoot! I was thinking James.
Totally forgot. If Derek Carr doesn't win
That's
this,
why I'm here,
if he doesn't win this division, this man needs to rethink his career in football. Maybe go play some Pee Wee football. I don't know. But you're in the worst division, basically, so you need to do something. I mean, all the other quarterbacks have something to prove, so, I mean, I'm not saying that these games will be easy by any means, but, they'll be, wanting to fight and things like that. But you should have an easier road than any other division.
No, I would agree with you. I think the most expectations are probably on the Saints because they have the most veteran quarterback on their team. To expect them to take them, to the playoffs. All the other teams, I mean, Atlanta, Carolina, even Tampa Bay, I mean, there's minimal expectation league-wise as far as, winning a bunch of games and then taking the division. So the most expectations are on the Saints. So for them not winning the division and getting to the playoffs would be a huge disappointment to the Saints. I don't think it's going to happen because I have them coming in too, but they have the most expectations as far as team-wise for the NFC South.
100%. I think we can all kind of set that for the AFC South, or NFC South. Next, we'll talk about the NFC West. We'll go ahead and start with Dylan on this one.
All right, so NFC West. We're gonna go ahead and put the Cardinals at 4. It seems like Kyler Murray is the only anything close to a star left.
The only player left, yeah.
The only relatively star player left on that team.
I want to call him a star.
They have a pretty dark future in my eyes. 3. I'm going back and forth between the Seahawks and Rams. I just don't know with the return of all of these injured players from last year if the Rams are going to be the team that we once saw. So I'm going to go ahead and put them at the 3rd spot. And 2, I have the Seahawks. Like I said, I could see those two teams tying. Or whoever's going to be in the 2nd spot, I see being ahead by 1, maybe 2 games at the most. I like what they did last year. It was supposed to be a rebuilding year for them in a way, and they made the best of their situation and had a pretty solid season, I would say, for the most part, making the playoffs. Not really a whole lot of people expected that. And then the no one's surprise, I have the San Francisco 49ers. Their defense is just absolutely stacked, and they are just as stacked in terms of offensive weapons, both on the line and skill position players. And whether it's Lance or Purdy, I think the 49ers won't have an easy way through the season, but I think it'll be relatively comfortable for the most part.
I like it. I like it a lot. Going to Nick. What we got here for the NFC West?
Yeah, so this division, I think, is going to have a bounce back year, top to bottom, except the bottom, which would be the Arizona Cardinals. I don't think they're headed to a dark place, as Dylan sort of alluded to. We can discuss that in the deep dive podcast that we may do about certain situations, but it doesn't look promising for the franchise as a whole going forward, as there's many question marks. So the Cardinals at number 4 for sure. This is where it's starting to get tricky, because I do think the next 3 teams are going to, at least the next 2 teams, are going to have even better years. But at number 3, I do have Seattle. I think last year, one of the best stories across the NFL was seeing Geno Smith, comeback player of the year. No one, there really wasn't expectations coming off of the Russell Wilson situation that anything would come up of the team or of him specifically. I just saw Geno Smith's own specific NFL journey to that point, and he by far blew all the naysayers out of the water, deservingly so. Having said that, though, I do think they're going to come in 3. Why? Because the number 2 team, the LA Rams, last year, look, they were riddled with injuries across the board, including their star quarterback and their star wide receiver. I think both of them would come up healthy. Aaron Donald's going to be back, best defensive tackle in the NFL. They're better than what their record was. So, with that, number 1 is still, I don't want to give out too many indications as far as where I'm leaning into some later topics, but the San Francisco 49ers, one of the strongest teams in the league from top to bottom. They do have a little bit of question, just injuries concern with Brock Purdy coming into the season, but all indications seem that he's going to be good to go by the start of the regular season. Other than that, I mean, there's really no other question marks on their team that you can really, that are outstanding. So the 49ers are pretty much the king of that division.
I love it. Here we go, Dan. On to you.
I do agree with Nick and Dylan on a lot of these choices for their division spots. So yeah, Arizona has not proven to take a step forward with draft or anything or off-season changes. So basically, yeah, I can see them maybe winning at least another game or 2. They had 4 wins last year. They can maybe win 5 or 6. But they're at the bottom at 4. I do have Seattle and LA flipped from last year. I think Seattle is a really good team. You know, they can, have a good chance, but I can see them, losing a couple more. So they'll be the 3 seed in the NFC West. That would be leaving San Francisco and LA Rams. I do think the LA Rams will improve a lot as long as they stay healthy with Matthew Stafford, getting Cooper Kupp, of course. So they will be the number 2 seed in the NFC West. They'll win a lot more games than 5. So that leaves, obviously, San Francisco 49ers. They will hold that NFC West crown. I think they won't get as many wins. They had 13 last year, so a couple less, but they'll still retain that division with their defense, with their offensive line, even holding up their quarterback the best they can. I think they can definitely still pull it out. They have a really good system over there, so shout out to them.
So yeah, this division definitely isn't going to be the easiest by any means, but we all do know the Cards are number 4. I think everyone's already said it. They're just not doing too much to improve. So we'll see what they can do in the next couple of years. At number 3, I'm going to go the Rams at number 3. Yeah, they'll bounce back a little bit, but we'll just kind of see they're losing pieces here and there. They're still kind of intact a little bit, so we'll see what happens with them. On number 2, I'm going to put the Seahawks. Love what Geno Smith was able to do, secure the bag. Now he's going to be in the league for a little bit longer, and Pete Carroll, on that teams, they're kind of, starting to find more of their identity since Russell left. And so I'm just super excited to see what the Seahawks can do. But number one, I'm going to put the 49ers. And I'm not putting the 49ers up there because they're the best team in this division. But their defense is on point, and their defense is what's going to win them games. I'm just scared about the quarterback situation. Is Brock Purdy going to stay healthy? Is Trey Lance going to stay healthy? It's really all about the quarterbacks. I mean, you got to have a great defense, obviously, but really about the quarterbacks. So I've got the 49ers up there, but hopefully their quarterback play will do good, and they'll have a better NFC championship game than what they had last year. Now we go on to the NFC North. Let's get into it. This one's going to be a fun one. We will let Nick start with that.
It's a fun one indeed, and for the third straight year, there's going to be a changing of guard at the top. I have the Detroit Lions winning this division. Look, Dan Campbell has that team believing in his view, his leadership. I am 100% buying what they're selling up there in Detroit. So I know this is making Dan's day back there, but I have Detroit winning this division, and I have Minnesota coming in too. I think Kirk Cousins is really solid there at the QB position. There's games where he becomes second cousin, not first cousins, but having that being said, in the regular season, we're not talking postseason stuff here. In the regular season, I mean, Minnesota has been a really solid team as of late, with him there, with him not there. The loss of Dalvin Cook, I think, is a huge, huge loss. It still baffles me, and I can't really pinpoint why, other than possibly contract negotiations, to why they just let Dalvin Cook, one of the best running backs in the league, walk. So I have Minnesota coming in at number 2. Green Bay had them number 3. And we'll see. We are now in the Jordan Love era there in Green Bay. So we'll see how they are. You got a young quarterback, a young star receiver there too. See how they gel. They do have some really good defensive pieces there in Green Bay, especially their defensive backs. So I have them number 3. Number 4, we have the Chicago Bears, although I think they'll be better than they were last year.
Yeah.
I think Justin Fields, they did get some pieces to surround him to make him better. Drafting the offensive tackle in the first round this past year. Trading for the wide receiver. DJ Moore. I think they're going to take that next step, but I do think they will end last in their division.
All right, that is a good list there that you gave us, Dan. Let's keep the hype train moving. We obviously know who your number one's going to be. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll get to that. So yeah, I do love Nick's picks and his take on the NFC North. I do think that Chicago and Green Bay are going to be at the bottom. I am going to flip. I think it was a huge change for Green Bay. They lost Aaron Rodgers, as we all know. So I'm going to just take a bold move, be on the hot seat and put Green Bay as the 4 seed. I mean, I feel like they have a whole new team in addition to that. So sure, they can, maybe, get some more wins than the Bears, but I think I'll put them as 4 seed. So leaving the Bears will be moving them up to the 3 seed. Justin Fields, I think he's progressing each and every year. I think the Bears can definitely pull out some more wins for sure than 3 that they had last year. So I'll move them up to 3. We'll see what happens in Chicago. And then that leaves Minnesota and Detroit. Yeah, Minnesota, I don't know how they got 13 wins last year, but they are going to take the 2 seed in the NFC North, especially losing Dalvin Cook wherever he goes. I can see them, making the playoffs as a wild card, but for the most part, I definitely move them out of the title for the NFC North and giving that to my hometown boys, Detroit Lions. I born and raised, grew up there, spent 14 years, so shout out to the Lions for hopefully winning the division this year for the NFC North, making the playoffs, and hopefully, progressing each and every year under Dan Campbell.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. All right, Dylan, you're on the seat.
All right, so starting at 4, I have the Chicago Bears. I feel like the wheels are slowly starting to turn for them. I've liked some of the additions they've made. I think Justin Fields will be a solid quarterback in this league. 3, I have the Green Bay Packers. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears and Packers switch spots, or if they even finished with about the same record. But losing Aaron Rodgers, it's really the first time in about 25, 30 years we're going to see a not Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers at the quarterback position. 2 very well-known quarterbacks. So bring in this young guy, Jordan Love. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does. At 2, I have the Vikings. Even with the loss of Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen, I think that offense is going to take a huge hit. But their defense is still really solid, and one of the more weaker, not going to say weaker, but bottom half weaker teams. The potential of the outcomes. I have the Vikings finishing 2, and then at 1 I have the Detroit Lions. I really like what they did last year. I think Dan Campbell's doing a great job hyping up his players, and is a true football genius, and don't have a lot to say for them, but I think they will squeak out and finish in first place in this division.
I like all these takes. So, Dan, you said you're kind of sitting in the hot seat with putting the Packers number 4. Well, I think I just became the hot seat. Get ready. I think the Packers finished number 4, so I don't even think that's a hot seat. With losing Aaron Rodgers and then just putting, Jordan Love there, we'll just see how it goes. I see him finishing 4th or 3rd. But I see the Vikings finishing 3rd. Losing Dalvin Cook is going to be huge. They lost Adam Thielen. I think they're turning in the wrong direction. So I don't see them in the playoffs. And if they get lucky, they might squeeze by with the 7th seed. But we'll just see if that happens. Here's my hot seat. I've got the Chicago Bears number 2. I know a lot of people think they're going to finish 3rd or 4th, which that could potentially happen. They might have a horrible year, but they're trending in the right direction. They're surrounding Justin Fields, with weapons, offensive line. I really see the Bears finally, coming up when they've been so low for so long, and plus, Aaron Rodgers is finally out of that division, so he can no longer own the Bears when he's in that division. He can own them when they play him again, now that he's on the Jets. But that puts the Lions at number 1. I kind of have to agree with all you guys. The Lions are the best team in that division right now, especially with having Jared Goff, the running back play that they have going on, really good defense, their weapons at the wide receiver. They're just, I think it might be their year to win the division. Did they win it last year?
No,
Minnesota won it last year. But I think it's this year for the Lions to win their division. That leaves one division. And I know this is one of my guys' favorite divisions in this car. So we're going to save him for last because we're going to give him the most crap until then. But I'm going to let Dan go first, and we're going to talk about the NFC East.
NFC East. So I'll start it off. Washington is... Actually, it was strong. NFC East was fairly strong. They all had a chance. Almost all a winning record besides Washington at 8-8 last year. I see them possibly improving, but also taking a step back, so it's really hard to say. But Washington will hold that 4th spot in the NFC East. I do, as you'll find out later from somebody else in the group, I will flip. So disappointing them is what I'm getting to. So I will have Dallas as the 3 seed in the NFC East. Yes, Dak Prescott, they have a good team, yes. They can do things. They can't win in the playoffs, as we know.
It's regular season.
But, yes, regular season. So, I think that they're not going to get 12 wins. They're going to drop, at least a couple more games than that. So
this guy just can't even believe it back there.
They'll be the 3 seed. Moving the Giants up to the 2 seed in the NFC East. Danny Dimes and the Giants, the G-Men, I think they can take a step up. We at least win another game, so get that 10-win season. And then Philadelphia cannot drop them. They are the number 1 team in the NFC East, and they will definitely retain that division title. And they can make a run. So that's my pick.
Oh my Lord, this is so much fun. This is when it starts to get heated up. All right, Nick, you're up.
Yeah, no, please go ahead, Riley.
All right. I'll go. So for my number 4, I'm going to put the Commanders. They're kind of trending in the right direction. Don't get me wrong. Management's coming in. They're doing different things. So we'll see them in probably maybe 2 years minimum, 3 years. We'll see where they're at. Number 3. Oh man, I'm going to put the Giants there. Yeah, they made the playoffs. I couldn't believe it. Did they have a first-year head coach?
Who did? Sorry,
I think so.
The Giants.
Yes,
Was that-
Brian Dable, yeah.
So he did really good. Very happy for them. But I don't know. I don't know what they're drinking in New York, but maybe they need to keep drinking, or I need to go drink it so I can be on that type of hype train. But I'm gonna put the Dallas at number 2 because they do choke in the playoffs. I don't know what it is. I'm not trying to talk too much crap about the Dallas Cowboys. If you're going to be America's team, be America's team. Don't be America's disappointment team. That's just what I got to say. If you're going to, the regular season, doesn't matter. It's all, it does, to get you into a playoff scenario, but you got to win in the playoffs. You can't win a Super Bowl championship in the regular season. You win it in the playoffs. So that's where the wins really matter. That's where you are judged. So the number 1 seed, I'm going Eagles. They are the best team, just like Dan said, in the NFC East. They're just one hell of a team. They damn near should have won the Super Bowl last year, so I'm excited to see them get back there. So before we go to Dylan, because I know he's just so heated and ready to talk, we'll go to Nick.
This division, so much drama surrounds it, year in and year out. Who knows why? But for some reason, there's just so much that comes about this division year in, year out. It's probably one of the most talked about divisions in the NFL. I think this division has the potential for as far as the team is concerned in it, the highest ceiling as well as the lowest floor. I think on the NFC side, you could potentially see 3 teams make the playoffs, or you could just see 1. So, having said that, number 4 in the NFC is going to be the Washington Commanders. They have a really, really solid defense there. Really solid head coach in Ron Rivera. Still big question marks at the QB position. Terry McLaurin is a stud at the wide receiver position. But again, the biggest position in football is the quarterback position, and they're getting led by Sam Howell. So, they traded Taylor Heineke in the offseason. He's no longer there. So, guys.
He went to Atlanta.
He went to Atlanta, that's correct. So, we'll see what happens with the Commanders there in our nation's capital. At number 3, going to put the Giants. I don't want that to sound like that's going to be negative on their overall record for the season. They were one of the surprise teams in the NFL last year, the New York Giants. I think they'll have a really good year, but I do think they will come in 3rd in this division. That Saquon Barkley running back's contract situation is huge for their team, and that is something that they do need to figure out. Whatever comes on it, and we may get to that topic later in the show, but I do think that it will have an effect on their team as a whole. They have a really, really solid defense, one of the best defensive fronts in the NFL. Number 2, I do have the Dallas Cowboys. Question marks around this team in the playoffs, but as far as the regular season is concerned, they seem to do well for the past X amount of years. So I think they'll do well in the regular season again this year. Dak Prescott, for all intents and purposes, is a really good quarterback. He's got to cut down on the turnovers by at least half. He's got to show up in the bigger games, but we're not talking playoffs here. We're talking regular season here. I do think the loss of Ezekiel Elliott will hurt them in one specific area, and that is goal line situations. Who is their biggest running back? Is it Ronald Jones at a solid 200 pounds? So you're going to lean on Dak Prescott to run it in when you're in the end zone or within the 5-yard line? That's to be seen. But they made their strength even stronger with acquiring Stephon Gilmore in the offseason. I think that's a sneaky, really good move for the Cowboys to acquire that, to pair with Trayvon Diggs on the outside. But I think everyone's looking up in that division to the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning NFC East champs and NFC champs and Super Bowl runner-up. It's literally the Philadelphia Bulldogs, as my colleague may refer to later. But they're really solid across the board here. Jalen Hurts is going to just continue to get better and get better as well. He was MVP category until he missed just 2 games. That dropped him out. So I think that was very disrespectful of him. I thought he should have won last year. He was my pick to win MVP last year. Losing Miles Sanders will hurt their run game, but I think Nick Sirianni is going to figure that out and figure out their run game. And I think they'll just be solid again this year and win that division.
There it is. One last final man to tell his story of the Dallas Cowboys. Dylan, take it away for us, please.
All right, so in the 4th spot, I have...
Is that who his favorite team is? Huh. Interesting. Go ahead, Dylan. Keep talking.
In the 4th spot, I got the Washington Redskins. I will not call them the Commanders. I still refuse. Quick shout out for Dan Snyder finally being fired. Fuck you, Dan. But on the football...
We are not owned by Disney, so some words may fly.
Not really anything impressive to talk about on the offensive side of the ball. Defense, they're always pretty solid. Usually one of those teams, as a Cowboys fan, never super nervous about playing, but they always keep it close because of their good defense. So I have Washington coming in 4th. 3rd place, I have the New York Giants. I think their only chance of getting the 2nd spot in the NFC East depends on whether or not they do give Saquon Barkley what he's looking for. I think without Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones is drastically worse than when Saquon's in with protection and giving them the option to hand off the ball to a capable running back. I think it really complements Daniel Jones' game when Saquon is a part of that. And then 2, as much as it pains me, I got the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of bright spots and a lot of low spots to look at. Defense got even stronger this year with the addition of Gilmore. I'm hoping Diggs will take a leap this year as well in terms of not allowing so many completions. Offense, yes, I think Elliott will hurt their red zone offense, which is one of the things, ball security and red zone drives, 2 of the things I think the Cowboys need to work on in order to get to that 1 seed in the division. But unfortunately, I have the Philadelphia Eagles as the 1 seed. They're just so good, as much as it hurts me to say it. I hate Philadelphia, but they're such a good team. Jalen Hurts is, even though he's the quarterback of my rival team, I really admire his game and I love what he does. And I think, opposite of Nick, I think DeAndre Swift is a better running back than Miles Sanders. But so I think even in that department they got better. You can argue and depending on the situations, but I think it's going to be hard to dethrone the Eagles. And the only 2 teams in the NFC that I realistically see doing that is the 49ers, and not to be biased, but the Cowboys if they have.
Dylan, you make me nauseous.
What?
This is why we love this podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Honestly, that was a respectable take. You were a decent Cowboys fan, actually.
I'm one of those unrealistic.
Yeah, no. So that was actually very, very nice to hear. we are getting closer to our destination. So this next segment is going to go quick because our last segment is going to be really fun. So the segment we're going to, not really skim through, but gonna go kind of quick is the contract with the running backs. What kind of has been, said, is the running back as valuable as a position as it was 10 years ago? Should we move on faster, quicker? Do we just replace them? What do we do exactly? What are our thoughts? So I'll go with Nick here because he has the most to talk about it. So I will give you 3 minutes. Ready, go.
I don't need 3 minutes, but yeah, it's just simple math here. 40 years ago, NFL was 80% runnage usage. It is less than 20% today. Less than 20%.
Woo! That's a big number.
The running backs are very replaceable. I think it is need-based, team by team. I think there are stud running backs in this league, but that list is extremely short. And it's even shorter, those stud running backs' impact on their teams. Take away those running backs. Is the team really going to be a top draft pick, or are they still going to be competitive without those running backs? I think it's a tough position to play. A lot comes out. You have to protect your quarterback. One little break in the line, he's gone, and he's running for 6. Got to get those tough yards. So it's a very, very tough position to be in, and it's even tougher to try to negotiate for yourself. But as we have probably seen the transitions happen in the last short years here, you're easily replaceable, within 4 years, if not sooner. And it's probably the position that has the shortest NFL lifespan too, of all the positions in NFL. So, I think it's very tough for running backs to get their money that they probably deserve. And some running backs absolutely deserve it, but it is also depending on that specific team. And it's not really, maybe the market might trend in their direction a little bit quicker or at some other point, but it's not looking good for the running backs here at present.
Great take. Dan, Dylan, any word on the running backs?
Dylan, you good?
Yeah, a lot of what Nick had to say. You look at the game nowadays and take the top running backs of the league after their rookie contracts are up, after they've been with a specific team for 3 or 4 years. You really start to see the free agent players available and the incoming draft classes. And as a GM, what I think they think of is you can get a guy for 20% of that former player's contract for usually around a minimum of 80% of the results. So, why go out and spend all this money when you can pay someone far cheaper or do a running back by committee and essentially get the same results or close to it year in and year out? That's really all I have on the situation.
Anything, Dan?
So I was doing a little bit of research, as I tried to a little bit before some of these. So overcap.com, I basically just looked up the top running back contracts. So I was kind of just looking through how there was 1, 2, 3, 4. There's only 5 running backs that made $10 million or more. So I know that running backs want more money. They can be an important part of their team, but they can also be replaced fairly easily. If you get the right draft pick or free agent signing. So basically, I kind of have 2 takes. Yes, some of the top running backs could get paid more, per year. Bigger, longer, long-term contracts, and make not nearly as much as the quarterbacks, but pretty much similar to the wide receivers, all important parts of the offense. So then, also with that being said, it's just kind of, and there's more, more running backs that actually did make $10 million or more. But Derrick Henry is pretty much one of the top dogs. So I can see what they're getting at, but they should also be happy with what they make and just be happy that they're on an NFL team and just stay healthy and go from there.
Absolutely, it's definitely hard. I feel like we go through something like this with every position every few years, whether it's quarterback, running back, offensive line, wide receiver, cornerback. Everyone always wants more money. We're greedy little sons of people out here. So I get it, I understand it. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, we know what we're worth, and that's why those running backs are fighting for what they're fighting for. To move on to it's kind of our last segment broken into two pieces. We're going to go over what is our surprise team to make the playoffs. And then our last segment is what is a sneaky team to make it to the Super Bowl. So our last year playoff teams from the AFC were the Jags, Chargers, Bengals, Ravens, Bills, Dolphins, Chiefs. From the NFC, it is Eagles, 49ers, Giants, Bucks, Cowboys, Vikings, and Seahawks. So what team, we're going to decide just one team for the East or AFC and the NFC. Sorry, I was thinking about NBA. And we will decide, because one of these teams from each division has to come out. So we'll start with Dan first. What team do you see a surprise team making into the AFC, and what team do you see making it into the NFC that did not make it last year?
They did not make the playoffs last year.
Did not make the playoffs last year.
So I'll start with the NFC, and I'll pick the Detroit Lions. They had 9-8 record, and I'm a fan of their system now, and they are progressing each and every year. Aaron Rodgers is out of the division. Minnesota's going to take a step back. So Detroit Lions will be a sleeper team. They can, I would say, definitely make the playoffs and possibly win. 1-2. They can progress throughout the playoffs as well. AFC. I would say I'm looking at the standings from last year, and it is really tough to say. I can see the Jets with Aaron Rodgers as a sleeper team, but obviously also like high expectations, so they're wouldn't really be a sleeper team in one sense. But then I would keep looking down, and like Denver could flip their script, or they could consistently be bad. So I will go with the Jets as a sleeper team, even though they got Aaron Rodgers now. So,
all right, like those takes. Dylan, you're up.
We're doing NFC or AFC?
So one from each.
So if I remember correctly, did we all have the Lions winning their division?
Correct.
Yes.
All right, so just not to go with the popular answer, I'm gonna go with I think is gonna win the NFC South. So the Carolina Panthers. There's not a whole lot going, but they got more going than the rest of the other three teams in the NFC South. So not really a whole lot to touch on, but that's who I think is going to make it, who didn't make it last year from the NFC. And then, let's see, from the AFC, oh boy. I really only see, can you give me a list of teams that made it last year?
The Jags, Chargers, Bengals, Ravens, Bills, Dolphins, Chiefs.
You didn't say the Jets, did you?
No.
Alright, so I really only see the potential for like one new team, and that's really the Jets. Again, going back to earlier in the podcast, I think it depends on a lot of these second teams in these other divisions, so like Titans, the Chargers, and the Ravens, how they do, but I think there's the potential scenario where AFC East can get three teams in the playoffs, so just to keep it different, I'm going to go with the Jets to make the playoffs this year. It's a team that didn't make it last year.
Yeah, I know they kind of have a lot of pressure on them, but at the same time, new quarterback, new players coming over, you never know. Yes, high expectations, but they could not make it this year. If I had to pick a team from the NFC, I'm going to go with the Saints. I know they kind of have, the most pressure to win that division, kind of the most experienced players. So I think the Saints could potentially make the playoffs since they didn't make it last year. If I had to look at the AFC, I know it's like hard to kind of think, but I'm going to go Steelers here. You know, I don't really know why, but I just think that, you know, the AFC North division is going to be really, really tough. And, you know, with having a great coach and, you know, them taking another step, their defense being, you know, top 10, I believe it, weren't they? Or, they're definitely a good defense. Maybe it wasn't top 10. Maybe it was right outside it. But I'm going to go hot seat and say Steelers. But that leaves you, Nick. One from each AFC and NFC.
Team that didn't make it last year that's going to make it this year.
Just
it's not really much a surprise from the NFC standpoint here. But I'm gonna go with Detroit. They got the best chance of a team that didn't make it last year to make it this year.
correct.
I think the Rams will be right underneath them, but I'm gonna go with Detroit from the NFC to make the playoffs this year. From the AFC side, I think it's a little bit tougher, but I'm gonna go with the Colts. Look, they didn't make it last year. I think they're gonna make it this year. Exciting things happening there in West 56th Street. I think this is going to be a turnaround year. I think they're going to turn that corner finally. Drafted the franchise quarterback here, who I believe should and will start week 1.
All right.
There's a lot of good things here in Indianapolis. Definitely a lot of question marks to go along with that. A lot of things to, bat down. But I'm going to go with the Colts from the AFC side making the playoffs.
I love it. I love this podcast. This podcast has been fun and spicy. Our last one. And we're going to wrap it up. It's a long podcast, so it might take you a little bit to get through it. But it's good. So we advise you to stick around. What sneaky team, and you can only pick one here, this is what's going to make it a little bit harder, to make the Super Bowl? A sneaky team. So not the 49ers, not the Eagles, not the Chiefs, not the Bills. You can't pick for those 4 teams. We're expecting those teams to potentially make the Super Bowl. A sneaky team. I'll go first here. Make it easy for you. Start us off. Go on the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar can come back and he can play well. I see him, winning comeback player of the year. That defense, playing pretty well. He went out and signed Odell. I don't know how well he's going to play, but if the Ravens use him well, their offense is hard to guard with the way that they use Lamar. So that's why I say they're a little tricky, and they're able to do some things that other teams can't do. I'm going Baltimore Ravens. That's my one sneaky team that could potentially squeeze it out and lift that trophy. What do you got, Dan?
Nick, you can go ahead and take the second.
Ooh,
Yeah, so just one team,
go, Nick.
or one from each side.
Nope, just one.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the LA Chargers as a sneaky team to make the Super Bowl. I mean, they have ballers at every single position.
Yeah.
Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen. Just on the offensive side, Khalil Mack, Derwin James.
They got a good defense,
The linebacker is at Kenneth Murray. They have ballers at every single position. We'll see if there's a hangover from that huge playoff loss and the wild card round last year or not.
Leave a bad taste in their mouth.
But I think they are a sneaky team to make a Super Bowl run.
Ooh, I love it. We've picked 2 AFC teams. Do our back 2 pick NFC teams? Let's find out. Dan, you want to go last?
I want to go last.
Here we go, Dylan.
Yeah, so I like both your guys' picks. They were both in the back of my mind, especially the Chargers one, Nick.
But are they at the
But
front?
I am going to continue with the AFC trend, and I am going to go with the Miami Dolphins.
Ooh.
I think they are very, I wouldn't say loaded, but very skilled on both sides of the ball. And I think with a fully healthy season with no hiccups or bumps or anything, I think they could very, very well likely end up playing for the Lombardi Trophy in February.
I like that take. These are all our real hot takes. We saved Dan best for last. Hit it with us, Dan.
So I will pick one team, but I'll start off with a couple just to lead it to the one that I'm going to pick. The Rams can flip their script, the record, as I've said before. So I can see them kind of being the sneaky team where, yes, they won a couple years ago, so they could be a good team. But if Matthew Stafford stays healthy, he could take them back to the promised land. That would be from the NFC, but Detroit, you know, nobody would pick them for the Super Bowl. So if you make your bets, you know, maybe they have a chance to obviously make the playoffs, and you know, why not just have them go all the way to the Super Bowl? So then AFC, I'm looking, and I can see the Jets, and I do like Dylan's take on Miami. I do see them, you know, they can make a run. I can see Aaron Rodgers lifting the Jets. So those are kind of like my top 4 teams. So to pick one of those, you know, it's a long shot, but I will just say maybe it's time for Detroit to win it. I'll choose the Lions. You know, they have something going. I'll just go ahead and pick Detroit. You know, I was born and raised there, so maybe it's their time.
Well, that's it, guys. We ended this podcast with a pretty hot take. Drop your hot takes below hot cakes. I'm just kidding.
Drop your hot takes and your hot cakes. We eat cakes here.
See?
I know.
We're hungry. We are pretty hungry. We are starving. So that's it for us, guys. Please check out this video and all the other videos, the other podcasts about the NBA as well. It's been a fun one. Hope you guys like it. And until next time, we're out.